Hi, today I would like to show you a demonstration of contract authorization functionality within onboarding module in Subscribe HR. Contract authorization functionality allows users to deploy an onboarding workflow, including letters of offer and contracts, and send those items for authorization process, basically send them to managers so they can look at the contract or letter of offer, make sure it looks right, authorize it, and then send it to a future employee. So I would like to start by going into onboarding section in Subscribe HR. So if you go into Workbench, onboarding, and then creating a new deployment. I'm just going to create a sample deployment, and I'll select my sample workflow, 3 steps workflow, which is just a simple workflow that has 3 steps in it. And I'm going to deploy it to my test employee. Click next. In this section here, it allows me to merge fields into my letter of offer. I'll just leave this as default and click next. This section allows me to preview my contract, letter of offer, and make any changes as required. So I can click on the actual text in the letter of offer, make changes, and then click next. This section here allows me to merge fields into the contract. As you can see, there are only 2 merge fields in my sample contract, which is first name and last name of the employee. Depending on the contract configuration, users are able to configure additional fields by dropping them into the contract template. Next. Same as letter of offer, I can now make changes to the contract by clicking on the text in the contract and making final alterations. If I'm happy with my contract, click next. Here I select when my workflow needs to be sent. So I'm going to deploy it now, and I'm going to request that letter of offer as well as the contract go through the authorization process within Subscribe HR. I'm happy with all my selections there. I click deploy. Okay, so the deployment has been created. As you can see, it's just sitting right there and it's not deployed. So we need to wait a couple of seconds for it to get deployed. I'm just going to run a task in the background to speed this process up, and we'll just wait for it to get deployed. Okay, so nearly there. So what I'll do is I'll refresh the screen. Yep, so it has just been deployed. You can see the date and time of the deployment. And what I'll do next is I'll go into the active tab, which will show me my deployment. So it will come up as a last item in the list. And if I hover over this icon here, you can see that the offer is awaiting authorization, as well as the contract is awaiting authorization. So I've configured the workflow to send the authorization items to myself. And now if I go into my inbox, I'll just open it up in a new tab. You will see that there are items in my inbox, new letter of offer authorization required, new contract authorization required. So what I'll do first is I'll authorize my contract. So if I click on the task, you can see that the contract that I've sent in the deployment stage. So if I'm a manager and I look at this contract and maybe I'm not happy with some of the paragraphs or the wording in my contract, what I can do now is submit my comments. Please change paragraph 3. This is just an example of a comment, and then I click reject. Okay, once it's rejected, if I go back to my onboarding, offboarding section within the workbench, and I look at my record here that I've previously deployed, and I hover over the icon, you can see the icon is now in red, not orange, and it will say that the contract has been rejected. We do also have notifications, obviously, going on in the background. So if when the contract is rejected, the person that sent the contract will receive a notification saying it's been rejected, and then they can also view the status in this list here. If the contract has been rejected, there is an option now in Actions which will allow users to amend or resend the contract, or do both at the same time, basically. So if I select this option here, amend, resend, just wait for the contract to load. Okay, so the contract came up. I can see basically the last rejection reason, which will say please change paragraph 3, and also I can see the number of times the contract has been rejected. Obviously we don't have a limit on the number of times the contract can be rejected. So let's say that I change paragraph 3, resend it for authorization. Manager might look at it again and say, oh, okay, well, I also want to change paragraph 4 or make any other additional changes, and they can reject it again, and obviously that process can continue happening until the manager is happy with the contract. Now, if I do want to make changes to the paragraph, I click on my text and I can adjust any of this information here. So let's say I'll add something to the paragraph, additional changes, and I can now either update and come back to it later, or I can request authorization with the updated version. So what I'll do is I'll just request authorization again. Okay, so contract awaiting authorization. I refresh my inbox again. I've got a new message saying new contract requires authorization. Click on it. You can see my additional changes have been added to the contract, and let's say now I'm happy, looks good, and I now can authorize this contract. Okay, it's been authorized. I come back here, refresh the screen, and now you can see that only offer is awaiting authorization. The contract is now authorized, and once the offer is authorized, then obviously the workflow will be sent to the applicant or the future employee to complete the steps within the onboarding process. This concludes contract authorization onboarding demonstration video for today. Thank you, and bye.